In this video, I am making chicken bone broth in the Instapot. But before we get into that, if you're new to my channel, I'm Denise Jordan, and I teach women how to make and keep a home. So if you want to learn more about running a household, hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Okay, let's jump into it. I am making chicken bone broth today, and I'm going to use the Instapot. And typically when I make chicken bone broth, I will either make it in the slow cooker or on top of the stove. But I need to make some chicken soup tomorrow, and I don't have any chicken bone broth. So I'm going to make some bone broth today so that I can make chicken soup tomorrow. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make my own bone broth is because, well, first of all, I've been hanging out with my friend Mary at Mary's Nest, and she's into nutrient-dense cooking, traditional cooking, kind of like the pioneers used to do. And it's just been so interesting watching her cook various things. And I saw her do a chicken bone broth in the Instant Pot, and I just got an Instant Pot for my birthday. So I thought, well, let's give it a try. So I've only used it a couple of times, but I did really enjoy working with it, and I wanted to see how it works with the bone broth. So what do I need to make this chicken bone broth? Well, I am using the carcass of 2 chickens, and I picked this up at the health food store. It is actually raw chicken broiler bones, or bones for bone broth. And when I saw these at the health food store, I knew they would be perfect to make my next batch of bone broth. And then I also need some carrots, an onion, a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. Now my friend Mary said you could use a cup of white vermouth, but I don't have that. I never have that, but I do always have apple cider vinegar. So I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of that. Some black peppercorns, and a couple of bay leaves, and it looks like a couple is all I've got left. So I'm going to have to pick up some more tomorrow when I get ready to make my chicken soup. And then her secret sauce is chicken feet. Yes, chicken feet. I'll tell you what, I'm a city girl, and the only time I've ever seen chicken feet was when I happened to see a chicken on a farm, and the chicken was running along, and I could see the feet on the chicken, or I've seen chicken feet on TV. So when she said she used chicken feet to help make the bone broth gel, I was like, seriously? Chicken feet? So I went to Kroger, and they didn't have any. But the lady at the meat counter said, try Walmart, and I went to Walmart, and they had several packages of chicken feet. And what they call them at Walmart and in some of the stores is chicken paws. And there looks like there's maybe about 4 pair of chicken feet in this container. So since I have the carcass of 2 chickens, I'm going to use 4 chicken feet. 1 set for each chicken carcass. And of course, we'll need some celery. And we're going to go from there. So I'm going to put the chicken in the sink, and I'm going to pull the skin off of it, because I don't want all that fat that's on the skin in the broth. So I'm going to do that. And then I will wash the carrots, scrape them a little bit, and then I'm going to put them here into the Instapot. And just to give you a little heads up before I get started, is that this is the 8-quart Instapot, and when you look inside, it's got a little pot, and it's got a little line here that you're not to fill past. So, and it says about 2/3 full, and so it says the filling maximum, and again, that's right there, that's the maximum fill line. And I'm thinking that these 2 chicken carcasses will fit nicely down in the bottom of the pot, and then I will add my veggies and my spices and the chicken feet, and then I will fill it to water just to cover. But what I can't do is fill it past the 2/3 mark. So we'll get all that started. So let's get started. So now I'll try to get this skin off of this chicken. The skin just has so much fat underneath it, and you really don't need all that additional fat. So I try to get that off as much as possible. And now I'll clean up my sink before I do anything else, since I had raw poultry in my sink. I like to clean that up with a little Clorox cleaner. I'll even get the handle and the top of the And I know some people say you should not wash your poultry, but I'm old school and I still wash my chicken before I cook it. Okay, so now let's get the Instant Pot over here. I will get it plugged in. Now it's plugged in. It says off, but it's plugged in. And then I will add these two. And since I've got my hands all freshly washed, I'm going to use these tongs to put the raw chicken down in the Instant Pot. And I want you to see this celery. If you take a look at it, you'll see I've got the greenery and I've got the stalks, and it's not the best looking parts of the celery, because remember, these vegetables are just going to flavor the broth. So we're going to strain those out. So it's okay if they're past their prime. And then I just roughly cut up the carrots into big pieces. Then I'll add my peppercorns, my 2 tiny little bay leaves, my 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, my chicken feet, I'm going to position them around just a little bit. And then the last thing I'm going to put in there is my onion. So let me get that cut up. And I'm just going to cut it up into large pieces. Just going to quarter it, then quarter it again. Going to drop that in. And I'm even going to drop in the skins. Now, I will admit, I've not done that before. I usually take the skins off and get rid of those, but since we're going to be straining everything out, I'm going to put them in this time because that's the way Mary did it. She just left the skins in it all. And now I'm going to add my water, and I just want to add enough water to cover the contents. So this looks like Okay, so I put in 8 cups of water, and 8 cups of water pretty much brought it almost to the fill line. So I'll bring you up a little bit closer so you can see that. So there you can see all the goodies are in the pot, and right there is the maximum capacity line, and I'm just about there. So now all I've got to do is just turn it on and we'll let it get to cooking. So now let's get the lid on, and you heard the little tinkle when I got it in place. So now I'm going to set it on the soup and broth cycle. Pressure level is low. And then I'm going to set it for 2 hours. So it's on the soup and broth cycle on low pressure. I set it for 2 hours, and then now it comes to where it says on, and it's going to gently come to temperature. And once it gets up to the temperature that it needs to be, it'll start to count down. There's a couple things I want to remind you about the Instant Pot. First of all, you want to have it set to sealing and not release, but you want to have it set to sealing so that it just kind of keeps it all nice and tight in there. And according to Mary, the low pressure setting on the soup and broth cycle is just enough to get it to do what you need it to do for the bone broth. I'm really excited to see how this turns out because, like I said, I've typically made my bone broth in a slow cooker. So we'll see how this Instant Pot works out. So I'm going to step away, and when we come back, hopefully we'll have some broth. The timer's gone off, and as you can see by looking at it, it's been counting down now for about 22 minutes with the timer off. And this just allows it time for it to just kind of depressurize on its own. I'm ready to go ahead and get it decanted. So let me just let any steam out in case there's any that's left in there. So now that the steam is all expelled, I'm going to open my lid. And when I take the lid off, I'm always going to open the lid away from me, just so that any additional steam can just kind of go out that way. And wow, just look at that broth. Let me bring you up closer so you can see it. It looks and smells amazing. But it smells really good. So now the next step is to strain out all the veggies and the bones and all of that and set that aside, and then to decant the broth into a jar because I'm going to be making chicken soup at another time. So that's why I'm making the bone broth today, so that I can use it to make chicken soup. And we have to strain out all the veggies that are in it and the bones and all of that because, well, we've extracted all the flavor that we can, or most of the flavor that we can, and you don't want to use those vegetables because now they'll be tasteless. When you make your soup, you'll need to use new veggies. So I'm going to lift the pot out. And I'm going to use this colander to just kind of pour the bone broth into this bowl just to get all the veggies out. And here you can see all the bones and veggies that were left behind. And let's find one of those chicken feet. Oh, here's one. This is what the chicken feet looks like. And here's what the bone broth looks like. You can see a little bit of the fats and bits and pieces floating around on top. I'm going to strain it again, only this time I'm going to put it through some cheesecloth. So I've got this little sieve lined with some cheesecloth, and I've already poured a little bit through, but I'll pour more carefully so I don't end up with too much on the counter. And I've got just about 8 cups worth of So this line right here gives me 2 quarts of broth. So I've just got a teeny bit more, and I'll just go ahead and get that poured in, and then it'll all be strained out. And here, you can see what the cheesecloth picked up. Look at that. Now look how beautiful this chicken bone broth is. There's just a little bit of oil that you can see floating on the top. And when I pour it into a container, I'll set it in the fridge, and then that little layer of oil will kind of congeal on the top, and I can scrape that off and discard it, or I could use it for something else. But I'm making chicken soup, so I'm gonna probably use just about everything that's in here. Let's get it in the jar. Now, since I'm making chicken soup within the next day or so, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in the jar. However, if I was going to be freezing it, then I probably would put it either in a plastic container or in a freezer storage bag. Then I would freeze it in the proportions that I think I would use. And I'm using this little cup to pour from, because I've learned from past experience, when I try to pour it and it's really full from this measuring bowl, I usually end up with quite a bit on the counter. Okay, so I've got 8 cups of chicken bone broth that I can use for my soup, and I've got a little bit left over, so let me put it into a freezer container. And these are 2-cup plastic containers. I just picked them up at the Dollar Tree. I'm always cooking something that I need chicken broth for, so now I know exactly how much I've got in here. So I'll just label it and stick it in the freezer. So I've got 2 cups here, 8 cups here. And you can already see the little oil layer starting to form right there on the top. Now there's just a little bit of silt at the bottom. If I was going to put this up for long-term purposes, I'd make sure to get all that out. But I'm using it in the next couple of days to make chicken soup, so I am not going to worry about that. But if you really wanted to make sure you got all of that out, you could use a flour sack towel and pour it through that. That does a much better job of straining all the debris out than does the cheesecloth, because the cheesecloth has just enough little wide enough openings in the gauze that it doesn't capture quite everything. So this one's going in the freezer, and this one's going in the soup. Now let me take this opportunity to thank Mary at Mary's Nest for showing me how to make chicken bone broth in the Instant Pot. Like I said earlier, I typically make my bone broth in the slow cooker, but I did want to give it a try and see how this worked out. And it worked out really well. It cooks up a lot quicker because it only takes me 2 hours in the Instant Pot, where it takes 6 to 8 hours in the slow cooker. So thank you, Mary, for showing me this much quicker recipe. If you are not familiar with Mary's Nest, I will link her channel below, because she has all kinds of great recipes on how to make bone broth, and she's got the recipe on how to do the chicken bone broth in the Instant Pot and other bone broths on her channel. So I will link the chicken bone broth that Mary has done below so that you can check it out at your leisure. Now before I put this in the freezer, let me just give it a taste. I want to see what this chicken bone broth tastes like. It's nice and light, not real heavy, but it's a very nice light chicken broth taste. So I think this is done. Interesting choice of pants.
Thanks.
You know, you're not gonna be walking around, are you?
Just got that back there.
Okay, if you could stop, if you could go back upstairs so I can finish.
That's not gonna make sense. I'll stop. And like that, I eat.
If you missed the video where I did the turkey carcass soup and I made the turkey bone broth in the slow cooker, I will link that below so that you can check it out. And if you're thinking turkey at all, make sure you check out my Thanksgiving one-on-one playlist, because that's where I show you how to roast a turkey, how to make cornbread stuffing, how to make my famous mac and cheese, candy, sweet potatoes, and more. And just so you know, I've raised 3 children. I've managed a home for more than 45 years, and I'm a nurse by profession. So if you want to learn more about running a household, cooking and cleaning and laundry and health and beauty, subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of the TNT community. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying goodbye. I will see you next time.